Hey everyone, and welcome back to Casually Unperturbed. Now, the reason I got so interested in the Taylor Matty story is that I think it's criminally underrated. It's the classic broken man image, someone who perhaps even uses it to their advantage, and the many different women who end up caught in their web. The thing is, we all thought Taylor would be smart enough to see through someone like that, right? But the fact that she, like the rest of us, could fall for a web of lies, that makes it all the more intriguing. And what's even more fascinating is that this might be the first time I've seen an artist completely undress themselves, metaphorically, of course, showing the most vulnerable, human, and imperfect side of themselves. And yes, I'm talking about Taylor Swift, not the so-called muse, Matty Healy. In fact, I even spent weeks, months listening to the 1975 to see if there were any clues or breadcrumbs hidden in their songs. I'll cover some of that in this video because it's relevant to Midnights, and some in the ttpd section. But overall, I was left with the impression that the way Matty describes his muses is very one-dimensional. They don't feel colorful. They don't feel real. They don't have life. The only life they seem to have is in relation to the lyricist himself. Now, Matty isn't the only one writing the 1975's lyrics. George, the lead drummer, also writes. But since most of the songs I'll be referencing seem to have Taylor-related clues, I'm assuming Matty wrote them. And honestly, I was kind of disappointed by how women are characterized in those songs. But I can see the appeal from Taylor's point of view. The music is incredible, and it almost feels like every song is love-bombing the listener. Anyway, let me stop myself before I derail into a full deep dive into the 1975's discography. The bigger picture here, maybe that was the entire relationship between Taylor and Matty. Maybe all they ever knew was the first phase of a relationship, the deep, intense, can't keep my hands off you phase. And maybe it never transitioned into the more stable, quiet, and present kind of love. At least that's what I'm picking up across these albums, but that's not what we're here for today. Today we're talking about Midnights, the younger sister of ttpd. And the reason I call Midnights the younger sister, because you usually expect outrageous behavior and dramatic moments from a younger sibling, while the older one is more reserved. Until, well, all hell breaks loose, which is exactly why they give me older sister, younger sister vibes. We were told it would be about 13 sleepless nights scattered across her life, and we expected heartbreak and haunting tracks that would destroy us, like those from Red. But the references in Midnights were intentionally vague, sometimes even confusing. I already talked in a previous video about why Lavender Haze was the perfect opening track for Midnights, and today, we're starting with Maroon. If Taylor didn't make it obvious enough by opening the album with Lavender Haze, she followed it up with Maroon, just to really make sure we put two and two together. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I broke down in a past video how you get lavender. And surprise, one of the colors you mix to create it is maroon, or any other shade of red, actually. Now, I am a big fan of this song. Like, massive. I still remember the goosebumps I got when I heard Maroon for the first time. It was a jaw-dropping moment. The lyrics, the production, Taylor's voice, just perfection. But since Taylor described Midnights as 13 sleepless nights across her life, a lot of us were left wondering what sleepless night is Maroon referring to? From the lyrics, it sounds like a time back in New York, describing an anxiety-provoking, on-and-off relationship. Very similar to how she described Out of the Woods from 1989, which is famously believed to be about Harry Styles.
It was a relationship where you kind of never feel like you're standing on solid ground. And that kind of a feeling brings on excitement, but also extreme anxiety.
So naturally, people started wondering if Maroon was about Harry. I mean, it made sense at first. Their major time together was in New York. Harry was with One Direction at the time, so the line about your roommate's cheap-ass screw-top rosé kind of fit. There's even an old, grainy photo of them dancing, basically recreating the Dirty Dancing routine under red lights, which could connect to There were definitely enough clues pointing to Harry, and Maroon does frame the muse as the one that got away, which a lot of fans thought referred to him. But since Taylor was supposedly with Joe at the time, it felt weird to reference an ex in such a strong, lingering way, saying they left a real fucking legacy and that she still wakes up with the memory of them. So, another theory popped up, that this was actually about Joe and a time when they briefly separated early in their relationship, like what she references in The Great War and Afterglow. Then another group thought it could be about Tom Hiddleston and their whirlwind summer romance in 2016. And of course, some people thought it could be about multiple relationships or blended memories. But then, Maroon was referenced again in Chloe or Sam. And suddenly, people started putting the pieces together that maybe this was about Matty Healy. Apparently, back in 2014, Taylor and Matty may have had a very intense, passionate connection, marked by red, that still lingered years later. Matty is in the 1975, so the roommate's lyric could reference that. The cheap-ass screw-top rosé is also very similar to the imagery in the one from Folklore. Rosé flowing with your chosen family. There are two ways to look at the title. Maroon. Most Swifties interpret it as a muted version of red, symbolizing a more mature, evolved kind of love, compared to, say, red. I've actually spent a lot of time thinking about why she used maroon to describe this relationship or brief time together. So, I'm going to build on that idea, that it's a muted red. Imagine a wound. In the early stages, when it's fresh, it bleeds bright red, but over time, it heals. Not completely, and what's left is a darker, maroonish shade. I think this relationship was like a bruise in more ways than one. The most obvious being that it was so intense, it left a mark on her forever. But was that mark positive or negative? From a negative perspective, the wound analogy, it could mean the relationship ended in a way that hurt both of them, something that made them bleed. And given the many references in ttpd, I think the cemetery imagery, revisiting a grave over and over, never quite burying it, might symbolize her scratching at the wound repeatedly, reopening it, staining herself red again. But the term maroon itself suggests that time has passed, because when skin grows over an open wound, it is maroon. This is an older, more reflective version of Taylor looking at that scar and trying to process how she got it in the first place. She's never, in any other song, talked about someone leaving such a strong mark that she couldn't get over them, even after multiple attempts. She might also be referencing her old work, Red, released in 2012, exactly 10 years before this track, and how love changes as it's tested by time. It's no longer just red, it becomes something heavier, something that leaves a lasting residue. Another way to look at it, maroon represents an emotional scar, a love too deep to burn out cleanly, leaving an emotional imprint that never fully fades. These type of scars don't heal, they just linger. And I promise this is my last literary analogy, but maroon could also symbolize nostalgia and regret. The song is steeped in memory, recalling tiny, intimate details from a past relationship. Also, maroon might have a double meaning, not just as a color, but also the word marooned, meaning stranded or left behind. This fits the song's theme perfectly. A love that still exists but isn't reachable anymore, something lost but still felt. That feeling is also echoed in Down Bad, one of my absolute favorite songs, with the reference to being safely stranded. And the combination of the words Scarlet Maroon has always felt strange to me because she's essentially repeating similar colors. But if we break it down, scarlet could represent something forbidden, while maroon symbolizes being stranded or left alone. Put them together, and it could mean something forbidden that ended up leaving her or him stranded. And maybe that's why it's a real fucking legacy. Because it might have been short-lived, maybe no one even knew about it and she was left to dream about him, to wonder, to relive those memories in her head, because she was never in a position where she could actually talk about it. Now, let's go lyric by lyric, because there's a lot to cover. So, the first verse is drenched in nostalgia, reminiscing about a time that used to be. It opens with them realizing that morning has already arrived, maybe signaling that it's time to leave, but she probably didn't even notice how quickly time had passed. It's something we've all experienced, getting so lost in conversation and laughter that hours just slip away without us realizing. She also mentions helping him clean the incense off his vinyl shelf. It's such a mundane little detail, but doing something that simple together can feel incredibly intimate. They were sitting on the floor, her feet in his lap, laughing at something. The scene she's painting here feels like best friends who just happen to fall in love, the kind of effortless understanding and ease that you only feel with someone who truly gets you. And then there's the line, "How did we end up on the floor anyway?" That suggests that time flowed so naturally between them that they didn't even notice how they got there. Now, this could be taken literally. Maybe they started off sitting somewhere else. And as the night went on, in between the fun, probably dancing since music was likely involved, they gradually shifted positions and ended up on the floor. But it could also be metaphorical. Maybe the night started with them as two strangers, still getting to know each other, keeping a polite distance, making small talk, maybe sitting somewhere more formal like a couch. But as the night went on and the conversation deepened, they grew closer. By the time the night ended, their entire dynamic had shifted. They had already become so comfortable with each other, like it was meant to be. The mention of feet in his lap and laughing suggests that in just a short span of time, they had reached a level of intimacy where everything felt easy and natural, like falling in love had never been this effortless because it felt like being with your best friend. And then there's the cheap-ass screw-top rosé line, which adds another layer of playfulness. It tells us that the muse really likes wine, and the way Taylor casually calls it cheap-ass screw-top suggests they had already developed that kind of easy banter. It also feels very British, in the sense that playful teasing is such a common way of showing affection. The verse ends with, "I see you every day now," almost like that one night was all it took for them to decide that this is it. This is the person I want to be with. It also reinforces the comfort and familiarity this person exudes, so much so that Taylor is drawn to them. Earlier in the video, this was a tricky one. Most people would look at that photo of Taylor and Harry dancing and assume that this line refers to that moment under the red lights. And who could honestly blame them? Anyway, the first part of the song conveys the good days of the relationship. We already had some clues that they were at least casually dating at some point, especially given the number of times Matty dedicated some of the 1975's best songs to Taylor. The verses are structured like a montage, shifting from one scene to another, almost like a movie of memories. However, the next section shifts to the falling apart. While nothing specific is mentioned, we can tell there were misunderstandings, carnations you thought were roses, rust between telephones, all hinting at long-distance struggles or a relationship slowly withering away due to miscommunication. Now, because I've been diving deep into the 1975's discography, I think I found a song that feels like a sister track to Maroon, All I Need to Hear, which was released as part of Being Funny in a Foreign Language, before Midnights, in fact. And it starts like this. Sound familiar? I know these lyrics are vague, but the idea of getting out records when the person leaves and how nothing. Then, the second verse of All I Need to Hear says, it clicked for me. This is the rust that grew between telephones. The miscommunication, the unanswered messages, the place where we lived all these years also gives me fresh out the slammer vibes. It suddenly all made sense. Being Funny in a Foreign Language was released in 2022, very close to Midnights. And, surprise, surprise, Jack Antonoff worked on that album too. Taylor and Matty must have spent significant time together in the studio, which could explain why their songwriting echoes each other. But no one really put two and two together until ttpd. Of course, I'll acknowledge that this could be retrospective bias. When you listen to enough of their music, you start seeing patterns everywhere. But since I've spent way too much time analyzing the 1975, I really think these references are intentional. What Maroon and All I Need to Hear suggest is that this was almost love at first sight for both of them. And most people probably didn't realize how intense it was. But All I Need to Hear also implies that the lack of communication came from her side. She distanced herself. Now, this is pure speculation, but I think her image at the time may have played a role. Maybe her management advised her to step back from anything that could be bad PR. Dating Matty Healey was risky because of his habits, because of his ability to stir controversy. In Maroon, she even hints at ghosting him. Rubies that I gave up. Not because she wasn't interested anymore. Not because she fell out of love. She knew it was rare, precious, like rubies, but she had to let it go. There's a bit of unwillingness in those lyrics, which makes me think she might not have had a choice. Now, technically, we can piece together the full picture from Maroon, but I want to focus on one line that made me dive into this whole deep dive in the first place. How did we lose sight of us again? Again? How many times were they together? If we count the known timeline up until Maroon, they had only been together once, which is 2014. But that usage of again made me go back through Taylor's old music, convinced she must have referenced him in other eras. As I mentioned in my Reputation video, one possible time was in 2016, during the Taylor Swift is Over saga, but that was all speculation. However, after re-listening to Being Funny in a Foreign Language, I think I found the song that explains all the again moments. It's the closing track, When We Are Together. The 1975 fans believe this song is about FKA Twigs, but to me, it doesn't feel like that. It starts with their first kiss, definitely in New York, in the Walmart toy department.
Our first kiss was Christmas in the Walmart toy department.
That's meet me behind the mall energy. And my boy only breaks his favorite toys. Even metaphorically, they could have been somewhere public but childlike, like a children's park symbolizing their youth at the time. Then there's this line. Central Park is SeaWorld for trees. The second I heard that, I thought, that sounds exactly like something Taylor would say. It has that mix of innocence and relatability. The song paints a picture of them spending time together, shopping, the muse-loving scented candles, which screams cleaning incense off your vinyl shelf. He mentions liking socks with sandals, showing how opposite they are. She's sophisticated, he's down to earth. Or maybe just a little immature. Then there's the line,
We were searching New York for a fancy new apartment.
That gives me Cornelia Street vibes, but let's not go there today. What's interesting is that every instance of their relationship follows the same pattern. She's wearing his sweater. They talk about cows lying down, which I think is a metaphor. Cows lie down due to environmental factors, just like he feels better when he's with her. It's sweet, but it also suggests their relationship, however brief, meant a lot to both of them. The only thing that changes through the song is time. Time keeps flowing, and they keep moving in and out of each other's lives. Then Matty sings about them both getting canceled. Taylor for being a slag, which of course refers to the insane slut-shaming she faced in the media. This might be the second time they were together, because every time he references a past moment, he also mentions her wearing his sweater and talking about cows. The third moment is when he says, "I'm the better writer," just to provoke her. And honestly, if I were Taylor Swift, I'd be provoked too. That line makes sense because both Taylor and Matty write in a confessional diary-style way. The 1975 might not identify as pop, but they kind of are. And this conversation about writing, my gut tells me this was around the NME 2020 moment when they talked. Maybe they had a brief reconnection then? Because right after that, she released Folklore and Evermore, her most critically acclaimed albums. Was this her response to being provoked? The 1975 also released an album in 2020 with great songs. But guess who released 2 great albums? Taylor. Of course, I'm not erasing Joe. But I do think there were on and off periods during which she drifted back to Matty. That would explain the Lose Sight of Us Again lyric, because by Midnights, they had already had at least 3 trysts. And suddenly it makes sense why so many Midnight songs feel like responses, or sister songs to some of the tracks and being funny in a foreign language. I also checked it personally, so these are things I'm going to make up based on some clues here and there. And hey, if you like looking at these clues here and there, feel free to join us on the journey.
I don't know if you guys have read Virginia Woolf, but she said in A Room of One's Own that all the things she says are lies. But that doesn't mean some of them aren't true. And it's our job as readers, or in this case, as listeners, to figure out what might be true and what might not be. That's one of the ways you can engage an audience, by keeping it a cat and mouse thriller kind of thing. So anyway, one of the references to the song Maroon that I saw was that the 1975 used Carnations in some of their live shows in the fall of 2023 after their recent breakup, and Matty used it before singing Be My Mistake, which is speculated to be another Taylor-coded song. It could have been a goodbye moment, like he was trying to get over the breakup. Or maybe he finally accepted that this is it. He messed up, and it's not going to work between them anymore. He also painted a sorry before one of the live shows, which led many to speculate that maybe he was sorry for how things ended between him and Taylor. But the question mark is really sus. Kind of makes you wonder if he's actually asking whether he should be sorry or not. Other than that, Along With Me music video. Please hit pause, go check out that music video, also linked in the description, and then come back, because what I'm about to say will make way more sense once you've seen it. I've even marked this spot so you can easily jump back here. I'm not wrong. This song is about finally accepting that someone you've known for such a long time is actually the one for you. And like Taylor said, it's such a rare moment when 2 people are in love with the same intensity at the same time. And I guess these are some of the things that Taylor was swooned by. Promises that were never kept. Oh, and as a final thought, there's a pretty funny inside joke among the 1975 fans that Taylor deliberately named the song Maroon as a nod to the beef between Maroon 5 and Matty, where Maroon 5 accused them of plagiarism. Apparently, Matty never forgave them for it and kept posting about it over the years. I actually found this on Twitter from a user named Nikki and thought it was too good not to share. So, I guess this is it. I actually started making this video thinking I'd cover the entire Midnights album, but just the analysis of Maroon turned out to be super long. I guess that means I have a lot to cover in the next video. I'll try my best to wrap up Midnights, even if it's super long, in part 4, because TTPD is coming and we have a lot to talk about. Let me know your thoughts on this video. Did you already know all of this about Maroon, or is this the first time you're connecting these dots? Do you have any theories about Maroon in particular? Discuss in the comments and I'll jump in too. And of course, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications if you want more videos like this.
Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!